Welcome back to One True Podcast. Brice Cherry alongside Zach Smith. Zach, how are you?
Great day. I'm happy to be here, as always.
Nice. Baylor's going bowling.
Hey.
It's pretty crazy. And with us is our old friend, Joseph Duarte of the Houston Chronicle. I say old. He and I are about the same age. 28 years now at the Chronicle and a fellow Brenham Banner Press alum. How about that?
Where it all started.
That's where it all started. Started for me there, too. That's my hometown, so pretty cool.
The Blinn College beat.
Yes, hey man, I covered Willie Fritz at Blinn.
I was a student when he got there.
Nice.
I was on the way out, so there's a little bit of a Blinn College connection here. So every chance he gets, he drops a Bucks reference.
Nice.
Talk about our days going to fine dining at K-Bob's.
K-Bob's. My parents loved K-Bob's.
They had a great salad bar.
Yeah, they did. It was something. All right.
Jack is probably like, what are you guys talking about?
I've been to Brenham one time. I had whatever.
It's lovely.
And I've never been to the Bluebell Factory. Believe that. Can't believe that.
Oh, it's such I highly recommend it to either of y'all. You used to get free samples at the end of the tour. Now you have to pay, but it's not a lot. So.
Well, I was shocked. I did a tour of the Dr. Pepper Museum when I went to basketball last year, and at the end, I think they give you a little coupon for a discount, but you still have to pay $5 or $6 to get a float.
Yeah. Everything, it's 2024 inflation. So it is Baylor Houston week, guys, and I feel like both dave-aranda and Willie Fritz have done admirable coaching jobs this season. Baylor was dead in the water, 2-4. The natives were restless, and they were coming for dave-aranda's job, to say the least. But Aranda resurrected this bunch with a 4-game winning streak. Now they are bowl eligible. He's officially back for 2025. And then Houston was 1-4, 5 games in. Obviously a transition year, first year under Willie Fritz. I don't think anyone would have really been surprised if they'd have ended up 2-10, 3-9. And
Right.
Here they have won, 3 kind of surprise wins over TCU, Utah, and K-State. Obviously took it on the chin on the road at Arizona last time out. But so for you guys, which turnaround is more impressive? And is there any chance that either of these guys get any Big 12 Coach of the Year consideration? What do you think?
For me, it's Aranda because, Willie Fritz is in year 1. He's got job stability. Dave was fighting for his job, and I think that says a lot. If I'm not mistaken, if he beats Houston, he has a chance to beat all of the Texas schools this year. That carries, I think, some weight, and going bowling is big. But for Willie, I think the over and under was 4 wins this year, so people didn't expect a lot. And they're still in bowl contention. They have to win Saturday, and then they have to go win at BYU. So that Arizona game hurts, but nobody was putting that as the marker for this year. So I think what Dave's done has been more. I don't want to say more impressive, but has certainly he's risen to the challenge. And my vote, if I had one, I'd probably give it to Dillingham from Arizona State. He inherited a mess.
Yeah.
And to see where they're at, and they're going to a bowl, and they're technically still in the race, that should merit some attention.
I'm going to guess right off the bat that's going to be your vote, Zach. You've been a Kenny Dillingham guy all year.
Well, we'll get to him later, right?
Okay.
There's some questions. As far as this, who's more impressive? I think it's Willie Fritz in Houston. Like, just based on the expectations they had coming into the year, like for them to improve from game 1 to game 10 and kind of look like they could be, a perennial power in this conference, like that's impressive. That's impressive for me. I think if you asked anyone at Baylor, like they kind of, I know that they could end with 8 wins in the regular season, but they kind of expected to get to a bowl game this year. They kind of expected to be where they are right now. And so I think that it was just a matter of could they put these pieces together. So for me, the more impressive thing right off the jump for Willie Fritz for I was a little bit wary of that hire. Like, was it correct? But like, because I think that he likes to build programs over the long haul, and for him to come right in and immediately make an impact and improve as much as he did, that's the sign of a good coach, and that's the sign of an emerging program in this league. And so, for me, I am way more impressed with what Willie Fritz has done this year than what
No,
Dave Aranda has done. So, yeah. And as far as coach of the year, I think it's probably Kalani Sitake. You know, even if they don't make the playoff. But
What
yeah,
about Coach Prime? Come on. What do y'all think? It's me and
haters. We're all haters.
we're all hated. We none of us believe. Do you believe?
Brice, going back on Willie, I think one thing that holds back this being, I mean, it's going to be successful, I think, because of what people expect, but the offense is just bad, and I thought that we would see some improvement at some point. In your week 10, and you're not even finding the end zone, and you get stopped on fourth down 4 times, and still can't get a yard at the goal line. Maybe I mean it's talent. They don't have it but I haven't seen that. I mean, the defense has at least been pretty good most of the year, but the offense has just been just stuck in. It's like that old car that you just try to get. Eventually, you're going to get out and push the darn thing if you got to get it to start. And I just haven't seen that this year.
Mm. I'm with Joseph on Dillingham as just because of expectations of Arizona State. I think Zach, I thought they were going to be pretty decent, but not many people did. Um, so he would probably be my Big 12 Coach of the Year vote. But I do think Sataki and Dion are probably going to get some votes. I mean, if Dion ends up in the playoff, I mean, I don't know how you could overlook that. Uh, so clearly Baylor's on a roll, 4 straight wins, but the Cougars have been pretty good at home, 3-2. Um, so the Bears are listed as an 8-point favorite for this game on Saturday. But what do you think? Could it be a trap game for Baylor?
I think it could be more of a letdown spot than anything. I don't know if a trap game on their way to Arlington, maybe. I don't know. But I think they could let it, this offense has been humming so well over the last 4 games that you just you wonder if or when that balloon is going to kind of burst. And I think that, you know, I look at Houston's run defense. They've allowed 130 yards a game over the last 4 games. And on the same side, Baylor's, rushed for almost 260 per game. And so, like, they're kind of running up. It's like an unstoppable force and an immovable object, or whatever that phrase is. Like, I think that I just worry that Baylor's offense is going to slow down at some point. And I think Houston's defense is stout enough to where it could kind of pop that balloon. So I'm still going to pick Baylor. I think Baylor's going to win. But I just, I think I think they could be let down in a few ways.
Now, Brice, you're a Houston guy, so you know what I'm about to say. They're bringing out the Houston blue, that Columbia blue, Oilers blue
Oh,
this weekend.
love it.
So baby, it's going to be on if you're a Houston Cougar. They tend to they're calling it a blue out game, and they're hyped, and this is
Yeah,
their big moment.
didn't the Titans have some sort of issue?
Yeah, we did the whole there was a cease and desist letter that was sent out from the NFL and telling them, hey, you're basically mooching off of the good name of the Oilers. And then the funny thing was the previous athletic director sent a return email or letter that said, basically blank you, we're going to do it anyway, which was I thought was really, really cool, very Houston like. So, but yeah, but when you factor in, the swag that they're going to have, the last 2 games at home for Houston have been won on a game-winning field goal and on a big run, like with less than 2 minutes left, and then a failed Hail Mary by Kansas State. So they've had some really exciting games. They do play well at home. I don't know, it's been since the Southwest Conference that Baylor's been in town. I imagine there's going to be quite a bit of green in the stands to mix in with that blue. So I don't know if it's a trap game or letdown type game for Baylor. I do know that Houston still playing some meaningful games in November, and if they can get this one, I don't think it's happening in Provo, but at least you play for another week and you have something else to play for. So it'll be fun having the old Southwest Conference gang back together here in Houston because I think Baylor's the last one of the ones that they're eligible to play or are going to play that hasn't been to town. Everybody else has since then.
Yeah, it will be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Love going to H-Town, obviously. But um, I just feel like Baylor figured something out when they went to Lubbock. They had laid such an egg in Ames, but these last couple road games in Lubbock and now Morgantown, a place they had never won before last Saturday, they look like they're locked in on the road, and I think they'll probably get it done. I don't think Andre Ware's walking through that door. I don't think David Klingler's walking through that door for Houston. Uh, it would have been perfect, Joseph, if the cease and desist letter, instead of basically saying blank you, had just said bless your heart, which we know is Texan for blank.
Right, right. There's so many. I was just thinking, there's so many crazy little storylines. We know that the little dust up that Dana had with the equipment truck fiasco a few years ago. So there's I don't want to say there's bad blood, but you look at last year's game, it goes down to the wire and then overtime. So there's I think this has the potential out of all the games Houston will play in the state. This one could be the one that's maybe more fun than the other ones because they played Texas Tech quite a bit since the breakup. But Baylor, there's just something about those Bears and Waco that these two cities brings out the best in them sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. It'll be fun in basketball too.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that later. So, you guys referenced it earlier, but BYU, they finally took their first loss of the season last week against a resurgent Kansas team, which suddenly looks, like the team everybody expected. Um, the Cougars and Colorado are now tied atop the Big 12 at 6-1. You got Arizona State, Iowa State sitting there at 5-2, and then you've got this big jumbled mess in the middle of teams that are either 4-3 and 3-4. It's 8 teams in all in that mess. So out of any of these teams, who in this jam-packed conference has the best shot of when they get into the CFP, maybe winning a game and maybe even winning 2 games and get to the semifinals or something? I don't know. What do you think?
To me, it's singular. There's one team that's going to get in for the Big 12 it's going to be a one bid or whatever you call it. It's the one
Yeah.
team to get in. I go with BYU, and I think that they could win that first game. And depends, of course, on location. But if it's a home game, they're pretty good at home. I mean, they're really tough to beat there. I don't see if you base it on resumes. I don't know who else can make a big claim right now. I think Colorado was 21st, and Iowa State was kind of on the back end of the rankings this week. But I mean, right now, if I had to go with it, I'd say BYU would be the team in the league, and they're the one that's been the most consistent up to this point.
Now, Zach, you were not overly impressed with BYU. What do you say?
I'm still not. I still don't think they're any good. Well, they're good, but yeah, you know what I mean. I don't think they're championship winning good. To me, it's Colorado, like pretty easily.
They do
I
have the
remember
best players.
the best two players clearly,
Yeah.
and I know like when we were in Boulder, like we were like just shocked at the horrible offensive line. We were like, Shadur's going to get killed,
Yes.
you know,
I never thought Shador would make it through the season.
and to me, like that's another credit to Coach Prime and credit to that coaching staff because, yes, two players do not make a team, but the rest of the team around those two players has improved so much from the beginning of the season to now to where I think they are legit contenders to win a game in the playoff, to win the Big 12 and win a game in the playoffs. And when you have two superstars like Travis Hunter and Shadur Sanders, who are they are must-see TV every time they take the field. Like give me Colorado. I think they have the best shot to,
I tend
make some noise.
I tend to agree with that. I think BYU, I don't know, they're just not a sexy team, but they are solid. There's no question they're solid. But the thing that impresses me so much about Shador and um, Travis Hunter's off the charts good. Like that guy is unreal. Um, but Shador makes plays even when the line isn't giving him any protection.
Mhm.
Like,
Right.
that guy, he's going to be special in the NFL, I think, just because, I know Dion's already trying to push the buttons to see where, he can direct Shador to go in the NFL. But I think, it's not going to necessarily matter what kind of line he has because he can scramble, he can get out of trouble and make plays on the run. So, um,
Bryce, here's a thought, and I don't care which of them makes the college football playoff. I want Colorado in the Big 12 championship game because I want to see Jerry Jones walk on the sideline and try to pull Dion out of the game and say, "Hey, you're our guy now. We're going to hire you. You want the Cowboy job? It's yours," and then just leave it at that. But
well, Dion would say, "You got to take Shador with me." I mean,
hey, that's
that's
part of the package deal. Take done
package
deal.
deal. That's right. That has already been speculated on. So, uh, by the way, so Joseph's coming to us from the lovely U of H campus, and I've noticed Waldo a few times walking behind. Like, where's Waldo? Like, that person has been there just a few times. So, I've pointed out Waldo a couple times behind you. That was
Yeah, I
random.
didn't want people to think that I'm at some weird place or
No, no.
So thanks for pointing out where I'm at. It's like, where the heck is
So,
he doing this live from?
uh, obviously, like we said, this year is kind of a weird year in the Big 12. Very a whole heck of a lot of parity. But looking ahead to 2025, do you guys envision this as a precursor to like things to come for this conference in terms of the parity? Or do you feel like is there a team, a program that could emerge as that sort of year in, year out, very consistent, always going to be there for Big 12 championship weekend kind of team, like the Big 12 had in Oklahoma for many years? What do you think?
I think this is going to continue, not just in the Big 12, but in college football as a
Mm.
whole. I think with NIL and the transfer portal, like I hate this because it's so true, but college football is turning into the NFL. And you don't get sustained success in the NIL in the NFL. Like the Lions sucked for so long, and then all of a sudden here they are really good a few years later. And I think you're going to see the same thing kind of up and down with college football. And this gets to my point with Dillingham. I think Arizona State, I think what you're going to see in college football is like the coach becomes the sustained piece of it. And I think that the longer you have a coach at one spot, it could be Dave Aranda, it could be Willie Fritz. Like that is what is going to be the through line to some sustained success. And where I think Dillingham has a lot of good things going for him is not only is he the youngest coach in college football, he's in a fertile recruiting base. He's already talked about, I wrote a story before the season started about how he is focused on recruiting Texas now that they're in the Big 12. And so I really think Arizona State and Kenny Dillingham, can be as good as they want to be for as long as they want to be, for as long as he's there. And I think he's going to stick there because he went there, he coached there, he's from there, and there's really not any other teams that are going to call his name and he's going to leave for. So, you know, uh, yeah, I think we're going to have more parity moving forward, but I think people like Kenny Dillingham and Willie Fritz and even Dave Aranda, if they stick around, are going to be what, becomes a little bit more sustained, if that makes any sense.
Interesting. No, I like that's an interesting point. What do you think, Joseph?
Bryce, I agree with Zach, but I think it's a breath of fresh air because if you're in the Big 12, I mean the league office had the pre printed out mailing label for Norman to send the trophy every year. So now you've got different places that you can send it to because I don't think you're going to be at a point where you're going to see a team just run off a back to back to back to back type years of winning this thing, and that's not a bad thing. Who would have thought this year Oklahoma State would have been at the bottom of the ranking of the standings? And I think you're going to see a lot of maybe that fluidity where you might have a team have a great year and then the next year they just fall off the map a little bit. But the newcomers, whether it's been 2 years ago or this latest bunch, have for the most part been competitive. And then you mix in the legacy schools. I like Iowa State. I just think that they've sort of been the model of consistency and the way they do things, and you got to figure with what's the House settlement going to do, who's going to be full revenue, because if you're going to give the full amount, I think those schools that's what's going to separate the schools, because if you're at the 20 plus versus if you're down to 12 or so, that's a huge gap, and I think now, as Zach alluded to, that type of influence is going to have a direct correlation on the field and on the results. And if you want to win and if you want to compete, you're going to have to pony up the money. So I think it is cool, refreshing to see different teams in it. And I don't think we're going to see a lot of rematches in December's from now on in Arlington.
I certainly would have thought that Utah would have been that kind of a team just because of the consistency they had in the Pac-12 in recent years. And then obviously this season did not go the way the Utes thought it would. They didn't seem to have much depth behind Cam Rising. I know they have a young quarterback there, but that's a program that I think has the potential to be pretty consistent year in and year out. But I tend to agree with you guys that this is the way it's going, and with college football free agency, teams are going to be, changing a lot, much like we've seen in college basketball too. So, yeah, and Zach, to your point about coaches being sort of the constant, I had a friend, Baylor friend, who texted me earlier this year that was like, I've noticed Mac on the sideline just like really into these games, and like he goes, he really wants Dave to win, right? And I'm thinking, well, of course he wants, like yeah, of course he wants him to win. But like, to that point, I think Mac did not want to hit reset and like be painted into that corner of having to get rid, because if they hadn't got to a bowl game this year, I think his hands would have been tied and he would have had to make a change just to appease the fans and stuff. But uh, with the stability now, of them getting to a bowl game, they've got some momentum in recruiting. Now you don't have to like start all over. So yeah, I do think there's some truth to that, Zach, where if you can keep a good coach around, then, you're going to have some ups and downs, but, some blips in the radar, but I think you'll be better in the long run. So,
Bad years don't necessarily set the clock back anymore like it used to.
right.
You can make adjustments, you can reverse course in so much quicker amount of time. I mean, look at the schools that go out. If you need a quarterback, I mean, it's like you go on Amazon now and you can pick one and get it delivered. You can get Prime delivery. Use Prime there, you see. But you can get positions filled so much sooner. Where does that take away from high school recruiting? Yeah, some say it's starting to cut into it, but I mean, you can certainly do a lot more with your roster. To Zach's point, like free agency now than you ever used to be able to.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting.
Oh. I was going to say, Zach and I live pretty close to an Amazon distribution plant. Maybe that's something we can just order for Christmas, Zach, a quarterback, have it dropped on our door.
Well, I think if we're talking about the Lions or the Texans, we're good in that. But
yes, that's
Baylor,
true.
I think Baylor's also pretty good on that front too. So we'll focus on maybe a cornerback or something. I don't know. But I don't know. And to me, it's going to be really interesting to see the way coaches continue to build their rosters going forward. Because it's like with the House settlement and paying, players more directly, do you take the coach prime mindset and rebuild a lot through the transfer portal, or do you go more what Coach Aranda did, where it's like there's some high school development, like Bryson Washington's a high school guy, Caden Jenkins is a high school guy, but you've got a lot of these impact transfers that have come in and kind of just supplemented, not completely rebuilt. And so I don't know. It's going to be an interesting. We don't really have any big picture data yet, and it's going to
Mm.
be really interesting to follow that and see, who succeeds and who's the best at it. And I can't wait. It's why I love college football.
Guys, I'll leave you with this interesting deal. Colorado had obviously the most newcomers and use of the transfer portal this past offseason. Who do you think number 2 was in both categories?
Arizona State?
Houston.
Houston, okay.
Willie Fritz, I mean, he came in probably about a week and a half before the early signing period began. They didn't have a lot of time, and Dana didn't really do a lot on the recruiting front towards the end. So a lot of Houston's roster, specifically on the defensive side, has been transfer portal. So and their top 20 defense for most of this year. So it kind of shows you, the point of the data that you can do things and cover more ground quicker, going that route.
That to me makes the job that Willie has done even more impressive, really. I mean, just to basically kind of pull this team together that really hasn't been together very long. Uh, so Joseph, Zach, and I, and our photographer Rod will all be down in Houston on Saturday. Of course, I know lots of good places in Houston to eat. Pit Room is one of my favorite barbecue places. How's the press box food?
Save your appetite. You'll be treated to Frenchies.
Frenchies. Is that what
It's a
is
fried
French?
chicken place across the
Yeah.
street.
Okay.
It's good stuff.
Nice.
Dirty rice. You get a
Love
biscuit,
it.
maybe some green beans, but yeah, definitely some nice crispy
Probably
fried
won't be any
chicken.
green beans on my plate, but dirty rice, I'm all about. Yeah.
I just got back from Morgantown, right? And I went to I went through Pittsburgh, and I went to Piemonte Brothers like I was told, and I got a
Yes, yes.
sandwich,
How
and
was that?
it was great, and it was covered in coleslaw. And the only thing I could think about, Bryce, was you as I was eating it, as the coleslaw
So
was
Joseph, my
falling
story,
out,
John
was
Werner
you
and I went
asking
to
for it.
Piemonte Brothers and they make the sandwiches and then they put the fries on top of the sandwich and then the coleslaw on top of the fries. And so I ask, can I get mine without coleslaw? And I think I offended the waiter. And when he brought it out, first he goes, "It's your sandwich, dude." And then when he brought it out, he he gave me mine and he says, "Here's your sandwich." And then he gave John his and he goes, "And here's the right way." I was like, dude, they don't have that Southern hospitality we have in Texas. But anyway,
Joseph, did they used to have fajitas in the press box at
No,
Houston games?
no,
okay.
No?
not that I can remember. No.
Because I seem to remember one of the times I was down there, I had the best fajitas of my life in the press box down. Maybe I was somewhere else. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember the press box food, so it must have not been memorable for me.
Gotcha.
Oh well.
But Frenchies is what we'll get Saturday. Awesome. Well, we're down for that. All right. We'll see you there, buddy. Appreciate y'all.
Anytime, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yep.